to demonstrate. I want to demo Supreme, and then later on, I want to demo micros. Then I
Yeah,
want 20 pounds of H85 because I'm looking. It's going to be a replant issue, I know.
sure.
Give me a couple of gallons of Root RX. Let me see. What have I got? 12,000 square feet. Yeah, I'm going to need 100 gallons of Mainstay Calcium to make sure that I got enough on that one. But
On
anyway,
1,200 square feet. Okay. All right, and so let's get started. It's 5 after the hour here. Um, Welcome to everybody that's on the call. Hopefully we'll pick up a few more. We've got 6 in attendance now in addition to our redox staff here. This is titled Advanced Apple Yield and Quality 2020, presented by Redox Bionutrients. My name is Andy Dolph. I'm a rep for Redox up here in the state of Washington in the Pacific Northwest, and I specialize in tree fruit specifically. We dabble in some other things as well, but tree fruit is really kind of our main focus up here. So I'm going to introduce redox to you. Most of you are probably familiar, but I just have a short introduction to redox products here, and that will be followed by a discussion about calcium, and then I'll be passing the baton over to Eric Massey and Jasmine Baird for their contributions. So our focus again today is advanced apple yield and quality. To start with, this here is just a depiction of a range of abiotic stressors that plants are subjected to. Plants or crops are genetically capable, we know, of responding to these stressors. Examples of these are, as you can see, heat stress. So plants will produce heat shock proteins to repair mechanisms for increased transpiration, increased water loss. In response to oxidative stress, you'll see an increase in reactive oxygen species production, and so forth. So there's a list of things here, and the plants are actually genetically capable of responding to all these stressors to some degree. But in our cropping systems, often plants do not have the resources available to do so with either traditional inputs or in the soils, in the environment that they're in. In fact, it's estimated that modern cropping systems only produce about 30% of their genetic potential due to the limitation imposed by abiotic stress. And I'm really fascinated by this idea here. And so there's tremendous room for improvement. And so addressing these limitations is what redox is focused on. And this is being done with a highly effective but clearly non-traditional approach to plant nutrition. So redox, for those not familiar, is a bionutrient manufacturer that's focused on sustainable plant nutrition. And what redox does that is unique is to react raw nutrients with a range of carbon compounds that are useful to plants and soils, such as amino acids and humic acids. Those are just examples. By doing this, each product offering is charge neutral and highly plant available when applied to the soil or foliage. Redox soluble carbon compounds are also designed to enhance soil health by improving soil structure, increasing biological activity and diversity. The result often is an exceptional plant response, which increases total yields and also our target in many horticultural crops, which is marketable yields through improved crop quality and storability. Redox supplements are also designed to strengthen plants by promoting secondary metabolites, such as antioxidants, and by improving plant structural characteristics, such as stronger cell walls, higher cell density in the plant tissue, thicker cuticles. With this improved plant strength, the users of redox products, like yourselves, you can expect an improvement in plant performance, and like what Eric was talking about, a reduction in the need for things like fungicides or other chemistries required to manage pests and disease, as well as a substantially reduced need for other fertility inputs. So in a nutshell, redox is providing the resources required to allow plants to perform to their genetic potential. This is good for the plants, it's good for the environment, and it's good for growers. Redox solutions focused on 4 areas, and these of course are very intertwined, but abiotic stress defense, root development, yield and quality, and soil health. And what follows here is a short video that kind of talks about the way redox products are put together. So I'm going to just play that for you here.
Chelation, complexing, and micro-encapsulation, methods to protect and promote plant nutrition. A mixture is a blend of 2 or more pure substances that are intermixed but not chemically combined. If a blend is made using reactive molecules, it's no longer a true mixture. Molecules can chemically react to form new compounds. When plant nutrients are prepared improperly, undesirable chemical reactions with nearby molecules result in compounds that are ineffective. This renders a large percentage of the product unusable. Redox takes a unique, proactive approach to preparing our products. We use proven methods to perform purposeful reactions that produce chemically stable compounds. These beneficial compounds hold their form and function until they are applied to the plant. Let's take a closer look at our methods. Chelation is a chemical reaction that utilizes the charges of mineral ions and organic molecules to create stable compounds. Many minerals that are integral to plant nutrition and growth are divalent cations. That is, they carry 2 positive charges. Organic molecules, such as properly reacted amino acids, carry a net negative charge. Mineral nutrients can be protected from undesirable reactions by planning favorable chelation reactions between the 2. As a reacted product, these minerals are preserved in a form that's ready to be delivered to the plant. Without chelation, these minerals bind easily to other nearby molecules, both in storage and in the soil, and are rendered useless. Complexing is a process that uses organic molecules as carriers. These carrier molecules can have positive or negative net charges. While chelation focuses on divalent cations, minerals with 2 positive charges, complexing focuses on reacting carrier molecules with monovalent cations and anions. These are minerals with a single positive charge or negative charges. By forming complexes, nutrients are protected from reacting with other molecules and are readily available to the plant. Microencapsulation is the process of incorporating mineral ions into a plant, an eco-friendly surfactant technology. In natural soil conditions, microencapsulation adds protection against unwanted chemical reactions during application.
All right, so that technology is really integrated into virtually every product that Redox offers. And I would invite all of you to log on to redoxgrows.com and check out the website. You can find this agriculture overview booklet, which has an overview of Redox products. And this is an example. It talks about the analysis. You have a brief description of the product and some of the chemistry, as well as application recommendations and so forth. And of course, Redox reps are always available for consulting on this stuff. And you should know as well that Redox is offering product demos to growers going forward here, with the idea that people are getting to know Redox products, and this is a way to facilitate that. So whether you're discussing Redox products with your distributor rep or with the Redox rep, keep in mind that we do have product available for doing demonstrations so that you can learn more about them. And with that, I'm going to move on to this discussion that's my portion of the presentation today, and that's to talk about calcium nutrition. And this is really a passion of mine, and part of the reason why I actually came to work at Redox, very interested in calcium because it plays such a crucial role in the success of horticultural crops in the marketplace. And it's so difficult for us to get good calcium nutrition with traditional products. The two products that I'm going to talk about today are here, Mainstay Calcium and Mainstay SI. At the end of that little video there, we're talking about microencapsulation, and both of these products share that microencapsulation technology. They start out as traditional calcium raw materials. They're reacted with this surfactant technology, which protects the charge on the calcium ion. And so when you apply these products, you're applying elemental calcium that is protected by this encapsulation. When you apply it to the soil or to the foliage of the plant, that limits the reactivity of the calcium ion and allows it to get into the plant where it can be used for the purposes that we're interested in. Mainstay Calcium is 20% calcium. It's typically the product that we use for soil applications historically, although now Mainstay Calcium has a foliar label as well. It is finding, we're getting good results with foliar applications in place of other traditional products such as calcium chlorides. Mainstay Calcium is very interesting because it does not have the same type of detrimental effects that the chloride gives us in terms of phytotoxic results and so forth. And so it's really a nice product to use all through the summer, even at high temperature. Mainstay SI is 10% calcium. It's also 22% silicon. And this is in the form of silicon dioxide in the label. And when this is combined with water, we get silicic acid, which is the plant available form of silicon. This also can be applied to the soil or as a foliar spray. And this is both of these products are really the big products for us here in the Northwest. Quite honestly, Redox products, these two stand out and they're very effective, very popular here. So a little bit about calcium benefits. Many of you are familiar with these. I'm just going to review this very, very quickly. So ions accumulate in the cell wall and the middle lamella, providing structural strength. Calcium increases the temperature required to make the cell membrane fluid, and this is part of resistance to variations in temperature, heat stress, cold stress, etc. Calcium reduces ethylene and CO2 production, which then delays senescence and increases storage life. And this is something that we're very interested in terms of just delaying the ripening process or keeping the peak respiration activity down when we're effective at delivering calcium to the plant. These are some of the benefits that we can expect. And in apples, one of the very interesting things that we see is a reduction in just pre-harvest drop, because the abscission layer between the stem and the tree is stronger and remains there much longer when we have good calcium nutrition. Good calcium nutrition inactivates the enzymes that break down cell walls, so it delays the softening and the ripening process. And of course, we get a reduction in disorders, which is a big deal for us, whether that's things like bitter pit or cork spot, or just simply decay organisms that attack the crop once it's harvested and put into storage. So lots of things that we're looking for with calcium. Why are we concerned about silicon? Silicon complements calcium as it accumulates in the cell wall matrix and helps pull the cells even more tightly together. And so we see an increase in the carbon density in this plant tissue. And this applies not only to the fruit or the cash crop, but also to the plant itself. So this is something that we're interested in because it makes a stronger plant. We get a lot of benefits from that. We see an increase in cuticle thickness, which also is a strengthening effect. And silicon also promotes production of antioxidants in the plant. Both of these products are micro-encapsulated. One of the biggest challenges that we have with calcium, and particularly when it's applied to the soil, is that it binds so readily with other things like calcium. Like phosphorus or with sulfur. And with this encapsulation technology, what happens is that the calcium ions remain in the soil solution and available to the plant just through the transpiration stream. And this is really a unique feature and something that we can utilize regardless of the crop that we're talking about. It is very critical to get calcium into your cash crop while the cells are dividing early in the spring. Oftentimes, we don't have a lot of root activity, ion exchange going on the way that plants naturally get calcium from the soil early in the spring. So we can overcome that by using this. So as soon as we have transpirational demand, we can actually get calcium into the plant simply through evapotranspiration and get it into the developing fruit while cells are dividing. And in apples in particular, this is kind of a depiction of the way we understand calcium is delivered to the fruit during the growth cycle. And there's this rapid absorption phase starting at bloom time for about 6 weeks, where cells are dividing, the apple is growing. And once we get to the end of that 6-week period, we've formed a waxy cuticle. The stomates on the apple have become lenticels now. And so the amount of evaporation from the surface of the apple has diminished dramatically. And so we see this leveling off of calcium delivery from the xylem. And so what we really like to do is focus on getting calcium into the fruit through the xylem early. And so we're focusing our efforts on, just the first couple of weeks after bloom. And so we would actually start applications pre-bloom and try to do increased applications during that first 2 to 3 week period following bloom. And then if we apply calcium later in the season on the soil, it's at reduced rates. And this has been very effective. So we've taken this concept here in Washington State and developed a program. And we started with this specifically. Now, understand that Mainstay Calcium, Mainstay SI have been in use here for a long time, and it's been very popular for a long time. This concept of doing focused applications early is a little bit more of a newer idea, but we've been putting this to practice to try to develop some data to support the use of the products. And this is kind of the result. So here we have a program for Honeycrisp and other disorder-prone varieties. And it's comprised of the use of both Mainstay Calcium on the soil and Mainstay SI as a foliar spray. This is a short video that kind of we're applying this during bloom in some cases, using the speed spread. It's a very nice way to do it. We're getting 40 to 60 gallons of water to the acre. Really cover a lot of ground in short periods. If you do that, so this is a way to get that done. The calcium protocol that we've been using, begin applications pre-bloom, Mainstay Calcium, 3 applications of 3 gallons per acre every 10 to 14 days, followed by 1 quart per week through harvest. So we're putting on, this would be, specifically for an area where you're having an issue, and most of us have an issue for growing Honeycrisp. So we have that in mind when we're talking about this. And rates will vary, right? So you may have a cultivar where you don't get a lot of bitter pit, but you're having just problems with storageability. So you want to improve your calcium nutrition. And you can do that by putting on, by using the same protocol, but perhaps using lower rates with cultivars that are more effective at partitioning calcium to the fruit, such as the Gala, for example. So the soil applications are there. Foliar Applications, Mainstay SI, 2 applications of 2 quarts per acre, 10 to 14 days apart. So again, we're targeting cell division with the foliar spray. And then the option is to continue with a standard foliar program, calcium chloride, for example, to the remainder of the season, or to switch over to Mainstay Calcium with a 20% calcium as a foliar spray. And it's very cost effective to do that. A couple quarts every 2 weeks has shown very positive results. In 2019, we did this in several different areas, and these are the results from those grower-based trials that we did. 3 different orchards. What we did was we sampled fruit at harvest time, took it in and had the lab remove the skin and the core and just look at cortex calcium content. And over the different orchards, the average was about 21% improvement in cortex calcium content. And these were Honeycrisp. Bitter pit incidence was correlated nicely with that improvement in calcium content. And the average reduction was 58%. And this is just a visual of one of the orchards, and the worst one in terms of the amount of bitter pit that came out in the grower standard. But this is a good illustration of how effective we can be with this program. So what happened here was we harvested clean fruit from the orchard and took it in and put it in a warm room for 30 days and brought it out. And this is what the fruit looked like. And so the grower standard lost, over 50% of the fruit in this instance. This is another example of what we see in the field. So what we were looking at is what you would expect, on a pack out. Well, this is what we see in the field with the same program. So grower standard on the left, Mainstay Calcium program on the right. So we're leaving much less fruit behind in the field as well. And we were able to repeat that this year. So the previous slides were 2019, this is 2020. And we're looking for the same thing. This orchard, some of what's on the ground there is bitter pit, but a fair amount of that is just premature fruit drop. And so we're seeing this visual benefit in the orchard. In general, the blocks that we treated had less bitter pit this year. It was not a big bitter pit year overall for us in the Pacific Northwest, but we're still seeing this visual benefit on the orchard floor. And here's another example. Jasmine, you want to tell us about what's going on here?
Yeah, so this is just another example where a grower was interested in using our calcium program. So we put it out there, and it's kind of hard to see, but the grower standard, you can see that there were just visual bitter pit as you walk through the orchard. It was a night and day difference between the 2 treatments. So just another success story. And then here's fruit on the ground So not only was there less bitter pit, there was less drop. And then this is just another example where we did a redox soil program, so pretty much Mainstay Calcium, and then we did the Mainstay Calcium plus VSI against a competitor program. And this is a bitter pit count that was done on harvest of what was on the trees. And so you can see the significant reduction in the amount of bitter pit compared to the competing program.
Okay. This is another example of fruit that we stored for 30 days in a worm room. And again, the results were somewhat less dramatic this year in terms of just the total amount. You know, of all the blocks that we did, and there were quite a few, this is a fairly good representation of that. So the grower standard here, 5 apples out of 30 developed bitter pit, whereas the Mainstay Calcium developed 3. And, you know, while that doesn't appear to be a big deal, the difference here really is 16% versus 10%, which amounts to about a box and a half per bin of fruit. So, you know, if you're picking a 80 bin to the acre crop, a box and a half per bin translates into a fairly significant difference in the amount of packable fruit. So it's substantial, and you know, this program is somewhat more expensive than a traditional program, but an easy just the return on investment in the program. This is another example, just to give you a perspective on what we're seeing here. And it's very consistent. We get this, you know, very similar result. This is the most dramatic result that we had in 2020. You know, again, a grower who will have lost over 50% of his fruit in his grower standard program. And so what follows here is just a short video on one of the orchards that did this program as a demo in 2019, and then what he's done is shifted over to using this program on his entire orchard in 2020.
Okay, this is an older block. We've worked with this block for several years, and another example of where we're using Mainstay Calcium. And really exciting here. I mean, if you can look, just take a look at the size of some of these apples. And this is a problem with Honeycrisp. Oftentimes the fruit gets very large. And this is the precursor to having some issues with calcium nutrition. But if you look through the canopy here, there's a lot of really large fruit in this block. And the exciting thing is that there really isn't any bitter pit visible. So again, this appears to be you know, another very positive experience with Mainstay Calcium, Mainstay SI. The apples are very firmly attached to the tree. And, you know, an apple that's that large with nice clear skin and really no signs of any bitter pit at all, which is very unusual, to be honest. So this is very exciting.
Okay, so that's pretty much the whole discussion. I think it's this is an interesting example of what we can do with this micro-encapsulated calcium, and regardless of what cropping system we're looking at. I mean, obviously this product is being used across a wide range of things, but it's certainly a very effective tool for improving calcium nutrition. I would just have to say, there are many things that are involved in getting good calcium nutrition in apples, and so those, we can't ignore those other cultural practices such as, you know, good irrigation management, nitrogen management, etc. But, you know, this is a way to improve up your game on calcium nutrition. Mainstay Calcium, Mainstay SI are available both as conventional products and also in organic format. Both are available for soil application or for foliar application. And I want to just share this with you. In 2021, we are introducing Mainstay Calcium 2.0. And this is actually an improved formulation of Mainstay Calcium, and it's currently going to be available only as a conventional product and only for demonstration purposes in 2021. And so what we would like to do is to share this product with you, allow you to get your hands on it and use it, and see how well it works for you. The change here is a difference in the bioactive compounds that are in Mainstay Calcium that help it with the plant availability factor. And so we're expecting to have even better outcomes with this product. And so that concludes what I have to say. Do we have any questions at this point? Anybody on board here that would like to ask any questions? With that, Jasmine, I will turn the time over to you.
Awesome. All right, hello. My name is Jasmine Baird and I come to you from Yakima, Washington. I get to work with Andy here in the Pacific Northwest. I cover Washington, Oregon, and a little bit of Idaho, working primarily with tree fruit, but also hops, wine grapes, and berries. So I'm gonna talk to you guys briefly about red color development and how we can help you there. So what is red color development? Well, it's essentially when those anthocyanin pigments start to form in the apple skin. So both environmental and management factors can help or deter that production and influence your color. So I put together a list of different factors that can influence your red color. So first off is going to be your genetics. So if you have a really old variety or strain of galas, you're likely going to have less color than some of the newer strains. Physiological stage, so if it's too early in the process, you're not going to have good color. Light interception is really important, as well as temperature. We tend to see better color when we get those cool nights. Crop load, overcropping can affect, just cover up other apples from receiving that light. Whether or not you're using reflective material to get more light into that canopy. Proper tree nutrition, and plant stress. So I'm going to dive a little deeper into those last two because that is where we can make a difference. So there's different types of stress, both abiotic and biotic, that reduce photosynthesis in a plant. And if you get a reduction of photosynthesis, that can actually reduce your red color development. And then on the nutrition side, excess nitrogen causes excessive vegetative growth that can cause shading. So a lot of guys sometimes will have to go in and summer prune just to get more light into that canopy. There's also been studies that show nitrogen can be counterproductive to that anthocyanin production, and also studies that show potassium helps to increase that same production. So with that, we have two products that we have had a lot of success using to help increase red color development. The first one is DiCap, and if you aren't familiar with DiCap, it is the #1 seller of Redox. We have a lot of different uses for DiCap, so this is just one of the many. But DiCap is a potassium phosphate product that also helps to increase plant respiration and increase antioxidant production. So we see a really nice decrease of plant stress, especially like in heat conditions. And then the second product is Oxycalm Calcium. So this product also has a little bit of potassium as well as some other nutrients. And it really helps to increase photosynthetic activity as well as those antioxidants. So again, with both of these products, we're supplying plant available potassium as well as helping to decrease overall plant stress. So I'm going to share a couple trials that we have done to look at both of these products and their effects on red color. So the first is DICAP, and this was done by A&O Ag Research, which is an independent researcher. It was done on some early Fujis down in Dallasport, Washington, which is a really hot site. And it was looked at against the grower standard, which was a PGR. So they applied both the PGR and 2 pounds of DICAP twice, the first application being about 3 weeks before harvest, and then reapplying about 10 days later. And so here are the results. You can see both the grower standard, that PGR, and DICAP increased both overall color and the depth of that red color. And these measurements were taken with a kind of a handheld color meter. And then here's just a picture from that trial. You can see the bottom crate, the DICAP treated had quite a bit more color than the untreated control. And so this is actually part of this grower's standard program, and he gets really excited to show me his pack outs. He's had the best pack outs these last few years than he's ever had on both his Galas and his Fujis with this product. And so now I'm going to share just a few of the GS Long research that they've done looking at both oxycom, calcium, and DICAP on several varieties. Most of these are done in the Prosser, Washington area. So in 2019, they looked at both oxycom and calcium and DICAP, and also did a combo. We wanted to see if there would be an additional benefit from combining products, and we did not see that. But here we can see standalone, both DICAP and oxycom increased color. There's kind of an outlier in this DICAP trial, but overall, a nice bump in both color and depth of that redness. And then here is the oxycom. So a question I've gotten a few times is about using a potassium-rich product on some of these more calcium disorder prone varieties like a Honeycrisp. So I just wanted to share this from a trial that was done this year on standard Honeycrisp. So you can see there was an increase in color both with DICAP and oxycom, but they did a bitter pit count at harvest, and this orchard had very low incidence of bitter pit, but we don't see a big increase in bitter pit. Same with the Cosmic Crisp. They had a higher incident of green spot, which is also a calcium disorder on the new variety Cosmic Crisp. And we did not see a negative impact on that amount with DICAP or oxycom. And so something we are doing is, you can see we looked at oxycom twice and then oxycom 3 times. So we're starting to look at seeing if we start applications earlier, if we'll see an increase in benefit. And I believe in Michigan, they are already doing oxycom regularly throughout the season. Is that correct, Eric?
Yeah, we've got some some growers that are using oxycom calcium to improve some of the plant stress that's going through, especially in blueberries, where we have plant stress right after the first and second picking. We'll make an application of oxycom calcium, and it increases the amount of energy that the plant has. They virtually don't miss a beat. They keep going.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. So here's just kind of the overall summary. They did look at a few other products, but you can see on overall color on the apple and that depthness of red, DICAP and oxycom both really outperformed the control. So I want to share a grower demo we did this year. This was also in the Prosser area. These are Rave apples, which is a really early variety. We tend to pick them the end of July. And so the grower did the same kind of standard program, 2 pounds of DICAP, about that 3 weeks before harvest, and then again 10 days later. And what the ranch manager was really excited about is where they treated DICAP, they were able to pick 80% of the crop. So Raves are a bicolored apple. They have to make multiple passes because they color pick. And so where they treated dicap, they only had to go through twice, whereas where they didn't treat with dicap, they were only able to get 40% off with the first pick and had to go through 3 times. So that is a lot of extra money when you have to make more passes like that. So that's kind of it for red color development. Like I said, we have a lot of proven programs with dicap, but if you are worried about some of those calcium varieties like a Honeycrisp, Oxycom is a really good alternative. So are there any questions? All right, Eric, I will turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to be talking to you today about yield and quality problems that we've already discussed and a couple of things that we can look at. So here we have a couple of issues that we've discussed already. You know, during crop set, we've got a great deal of problems that can occur in cropping systems. Nutritional balance, that's also a problem as we get later on in the growth cycle. And then ultimately when we start cropping and get to the point where we want to really improve that fruit, that's when we can also have some other problems as well. So one of the things that we do at Redox, we spend a great deal of time finding out what the problems are. And I'm very grateful to Darren and John that they spend a great deal of time figuring out what the solutions are. And that's even more importantly, what we can do to help growers. So when we start talking about crop set and plant stress, we know that during the time of bloom, there's not a lot of energy that the plant has. All of the energy virtually has to come from what it did last year. So we wound up relying on the photosynthetic activity that we were able to store in the plant's root system later on. So one of the things that we can do is by adding key carbon compounds, we can increase crop set, but we can also reduce that plant stress. Andy talked a great deal about calcium inputs. Jasmine talked about anthocyanin and other carbon compound productions. Next, I'd like to talk about nutrient availability and some specific nutrients that are available to the plant from the soil profile. We can aid that plant getting through some of those crop stresses later on as we're producing size and we're producing increases in crop quality, helping the tree grow through some of those plant stresses. We're looking to enhance the sugar and starch production is ultimately what we want to do. And then finally, as we're sizing that crop and retaining the crop even more importantly, we know that there are improvements we can make to plant respiration. Jasmine discussed that with dicap is key to that. Understanding some of those photosynthetic compounds, increasing the fruit and crop size. So we've talked about dicap. I'd like to chat with you a little bit about Supreme. We've had some tremendous gains with Supreme. So where we utilize Supreme on a lot of cropping systems, not just apples and blueberries and cherries, but a lot of plant systems, anytime that you have nitrogen metabolism problems, we can utilize Supreme and we can overcome those problems. Now, Supreme is a comprehensive nutrient product. It's a 2-14-15. And what it does is it increases the reproductive growth and nitrogen metabolism. It is very good at doing this. So our standard applications for Supreme are, we'll utilize it at bloom, and then we'll utilize it 14 days post. I've had a couple of people that have gone beyond the 2 pounds of Supreme, and we've got one grower in blueberries that went out with 6 pounds of Supreme. He did 4 pounds during the season. Tremendous results. We got great crop set. We didn't lose any fruit during the June drop. And then after harvest, he went out with another 2 pounds of Supreme to improve the return bloom. So this not only gave the plant energy during the cropping cycle, it also gave the plant a great deal of energy boost post-harvest, which we'll be able to see what that looks like next year, and hopefully we'll be able to overcome a couple of issues there. Also, Mainstay SI, when we're talking about fruit size and we're talking about improving the quality of the crop, the fortification of those plant cell walls, keeping that plant cell strong and keeping it resistant to outside stresses with pathogens, pest problems and things of that nature, we find that we just don't have those problems when Mainstay SI and Mainstay Calcium are used throughout the growing season. It's also available in an organic. Now, talking about nutritional balance as it relates to yield, there's a great deal of crop stresses that are brought on by malnutrition. Now, when I mean malnutrition, I don't necessarily mean just not enough nutrition. There can be too much nutrition is definitely malnutrition. So what we're looking for is we're trying to identify where the balances are in our cropping systems. So that's excesses and deficits alike. We have a full range of products that can answer a great deal of those problems. One product that's overlooked a lot, and we've been gaining a lot of energy back with, is P58. Now, P58 is a 1058-0, but the improvement in phosphorus nutrition throughout the growing season is just tremendous. So when you look at calcium nutrition, you look at potassium nutrition, nitrogen nutrition, you can see that during the growth cycles, there are curves and waves as these nutrient demands are made by the plant. One of the interesting things is if you look at a lot of different cropping systems, the phosphorus nutrition curve remains fairly stable and all the way through the growing season. So repeat small applications of P58 is very beneficial for the plant. Triplex Boron, it's a 16% boron, it increases boron nutrition. Triplex Micro is a 2% boron, 2% copper, 6% iron, manganese, and zinc. And this increases a broad range of micronutrient nutrition. We have Triplex Magnesium, Triplex Manganese, and Triplex Zinc, all with a great deal of nutrition from with respect to those micronutrients. All right, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about quality. I had a conversation with a grower not long ago, and I asked him, I said, what's your biggest issue? He said, well, I would like very good yield, and I can appreciate that. But he said, if my yield is high and my quality is low, I'm not really sure I'm going to make much money. And after all, growers are in business to make money. So we talked a little bit about nitrogen metabolism and how excess nitrogen can reduce cell wall integrity, increase pest and pathogen pressure, reduce the crop quality. Fruit firmness. We know that if we have poor cell wall structure, this leads to soft fruit and reduced shelf life. A little bit of a story that I have for you when I was out in the orchard a few weeks back. It was actually a couple of weeks back because it was in November. We had a Honeycrisp apple that was on the tree in November, and we pulled it off of the tree and we checked it for firmness. So we cut off a slice and we put it in the pressure tester, and it turned up to 15 psi after it had been, almost a month after harvest still on the tree. Now, I asked the grower, I said, is there some significance to that? Because I'm not an apple grower yet. And he looked at me and he says, normally after being on the tree this long, that apple will be at about a 3 psi. It'll be practically mush. And I found that to be significant. Again, this is what Andy was talking about when he was talking about cell wall integrity and increasing the cell strength and the structure of that fruit. Jasmine's already discussed color and bricks. We know that there's an awful lot of things going on that we can do to help that plant get through that. From a nutritional balance standpoint, we know that excesses, deficits, or imbalance of nutrient leads to the sugar and starch reduction in production. So those are things that we want to be aware of. Talk a little bit about nitrogen metabolism. Andy talked about it, and it's relative in Jasmine's conversation also. So the fate of nitrogen metabolism, and this doesn't matter what nitrogen fertilizer you're putting out. You basically have two kinds. One is a negative charge, the other is a positive charge. We have nitrate-based fertilizer, NO3. We have ammonium-based fertilizer, NH4. So let's talk about the fate of nitrogen-based fertilizer for a minute. We know that due to its negative charge, it can be leached. We also know that plants take up nitrate nitrogen very rapidly. We also know that it can be utilized by bacteria. So let's take a look at ammonium-based fertilizer for a moment. Ammonium can be taken up by the plant. The problem is, unless it goes through reduction, it's going to be toxic to plants. Ammonium-based fertilizers can be fixed by the clay particles in the soil because it does have a positive charge. It also goes through a nitrification process by bacteria and fungi, and ultimately becoming nitrate gets back into the plant. Well, one of the things that becomes an issue, and this is where Supreme is very good at what it does because it aids the plant in the assimilation of these carbohydrates. So we have very specific carbon compounds that we can add to the plant, and they're in Supreme. During this stage, the plant is able to assimilate this carbon and able to assimilate this nitrate nitrogen instead of going through the storage. So ultimately, we increase the plant's ability to produce amino acids and proteins. So again, we're going to talk a little bit about Supreme. These soluble carbon molecules, as we get into nitrate conversion, becomes very important to convert these nitrate materials into amino acids, proteins, and the other carbon compounds that are essential for plant growth. Now, later on, as we get through that nitrogen cycle, we need to remember the fruit firmness because we're looking for a concentration and specific placement of these calcium and silicon nutrients. Color and bricks, Jasmine talked about that. Nutrient availability, and here's where a broad range of nutrients are very important to a lot of plants because, you know, we need to talk a little bit about root development if we're going to talk about quality and yield, and also in the production of color and quality. So the nutrient availability, we're looking at the availability of these plant nutrients from the soil particles. If we can increase nutrient assimilation through root development, early stage and late stage, and then we can add these additional inputs, we'll be able to get these key plant growth stages completely supported that will ultimately enhance the sugar and starch production in the plant as it goes through its crop cycle. We've talked a little bit about DICAP. We've talked about Supreme. V55 is one we haven't talked about. It's a very interesting product. It's a 725-0, but it also contains 4% boron and 4% zinc. Very good at increasing nitrogen metabolism, helping the plant out to metabolize that nitrate nitrogen. H85. H85 is an amazing product. It's a 0015 analysis with 42% humic acid. H85 increases microbial diversity. We've done tests years ago where we saw the increases in beneficial fungal populations have doubled in a very short amount of time with H85 applications. Now, the significance of this is you look at mycorrhizal fungi in the soil profile, it can add 100 times more surface area than the plant's roots. So there's a great deal of symbiotic benefit between microbial diversity and a plant system's roots. Mainstay Calcium, we've had conversations about that. Mainstay SI, these are all also organic certified as well as H85. Triplex Boron, we haven't talked about. That's a 16% boron. You can get good increases in boron nutrition from that. DICAP, we've had some discussion about. Supreme, we've talked about. Oxycom Calcium, we've talked about. RX 780, we probably shouldn't have any discussions about that because it's going to be shelved as a product. Triplex Micro we've discussed, Mainstay SI we've discussed, P58 we've talked about. So all the rest of these, you guys already know what these are looking like. I'm going to leave you with this slide. The significance of this is the grower standard was a pretty high input guy, and he wasn't afraid to spend money on his apples. He looked to improve as much as he possibly could. I took these photographs on the same day at the same packing plant. They are both Royal Red Honeycrisp apples. The one on the top was the grower standard. The one on the bottom, he basically did everything we wanted him to do with regard to mineral nutrition, helping out the plant systems. His cultivation techniques are absolutely incredible. I asked him one time when I went out to visit with his orchard, I said, you know, your trees don't look that good, man. I'm really not impressed. And he looked at me and he smiled and he said, buddy, I'm growing apples. I ain't growing trees. So, you know, keep in mind, if you want to get to the ultimate return that you can get on your investment, it'd be a wise bet to call one of us and ask us if we can help you, because we definitely will. That's the love of our lives. I absolutely know this in my heart, that we are here for the benefit of our growers, for the benefit of our distributors, and ultimately for the benefit of our company. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to visiting with you in the field. Thank you. All right, Jasmine, on you.
Oops, I guess I was muted. So here's the QR code for the CCA credits. So go ahead and take a picture of that. I'll leave it up here for a few minutes. And then we will stay on here. If anybody has any questions, you can put them in the chat or the Q&A, or reach out to one of us individually. Thank you guys all for being on here.
Jasmine, are you, what's the schedule? We're going to do this again.
Yeah, so this is part of a 3-part series. Our next one will be in January. We don't have the exact date yet, but that will be on orchard establishment. So that'll be a really good webinar as well. And if you do want to watch this again or share this with anybody, it will be uploaded to our YouTube. I think you just search for Redox Bionutrients on YouTube, and you should be able to find that. So
that was just a question that we got from one of the participants there, whether or not it'd be available.
Oh,
so,
okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good time. All right.
Okay, thank you guys all again. We really appreciate you tuning in.
Thanks a lot. We'll see you later.
All right.